Alright, so over the last couple of months, I have been making videos going over all of the Fiona Harvey Baby Reindeer Netflix drama. And so people have been asking me to cover this blog article online from a woman who claims she was a temp at a mental facility back in 2004 where Fiona Harvey was actually a patient, allegedly. If you're new to my channel, you can scan over my recent videos and get caught up on this Fiona Harvey Netflix fiasco. For today, I will go ahead and cover this blog article. And as you can see the title, that time I got stalked by the real-life TV stalker woman and what it taught me about data protection. And speaking of data protection, before I jump into this article, I wanted to quickly tell you about today's video sponsor, Aura, and how they can offer you data protection online. Data brokers sell your online information to hackers, scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you online. All they have to do is a simple Google search and it's all there. Your full legal name, email, home address, health records, relatives, they can get access to all of that. But Aura will show you which data brokers are selling your information and automatically submit an opt-out request for you, in which they then legally have to remove your information. Cleaning up your information not only helps reduce the amount of spam you get, but it protects you from hackers who could use this information to access your social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. AT&T revealed that over 73 million customer records were released on the dark web. They recommend those affected use strong passwords, monitor account activity, consider credit freezes, and enable fraud alerts from credit bureaus. Well, Aura will do all that for you. So if my info was compromised in the AT&T data breach, I'm not really worried about it because Aura is always on 24/7, keeping me safe. So stop data brokers from exposing your personal information. Just go to aura.com/Gary828 to get a 14-day free trial and see how much of your information is being sold. Link is in the description. And thanks to Aura for sponsoring today's video. Alright, so this article is fairly lengthy, so I'm just going to start reading a few paragraphs in. In the piece, I wrote about my experiences in a no-rights temp admin job I took via an agency while I was job hunting, which I never should have been placed in, as a medical typist at an NHS psychiatric facility here in Glasgow. Do understand that psychiatric facility means the transitional space for people heading into or out of the wards, which is of course the Scottish aphorism for a secure mental health lockup, aka the place where people are sectioned, the place people go when medical professionals conclude that person needs to be under 24/7 lockup for their own protection, either with or without their ability to consent. My job was to type the letters that psychiatrists dictated into their little tape recorders, post them out to the patient's GP, and file a copy in the patient's file. At least that's what the recruitment agency told me it would be. In truth, it involved two more things. One was being put directly onto the computerized NHS database for the entire effing city of Glasgow, less than a half hour after the first time I walked into the building with no training, supervision, or support. I could have been anybody. I could have pulled up any record I wanted. I could have amended any record I wanted. I could have read anything I wanted. And I did. Nobody cared. That was my first introduction to the UK's data protection regime. The other thing was being put into direct contact with psychiatric patients. They'd contact me directly on the phone wanting to speak to their consultant and then unload their literal derangement on me when I couldn't just put them through. What's more, the facility was perpetually short-staffed, so they'd send me downstairs to man the front desk, where I would have to witness things like rough sleepers licking the door handles. One day I was relieved from the desk minutes before a deeply ill woman began smashing the waiting room furniture onto her 2-year-old child's head. I even got myself a psychotic stalker. She was known for developing obsessive fixations with the staff in the facility, and it became my turn. So she'd phone me at all hours or show up outside begging to see me, meaning I'd have to stay barricaded in the typist pool room for the full working day. Did anyone take this seriously? No. It was literally the office joke. Oh, you've got her this week. And writing down the bones, I remembered how there was one morning when I arrived at the clinic, and as always, the phone at my desk was already ringing off the hook. It was her. That was the nature of her stalking. She would have been calling non-stop, knowing I was walking from the station to the clinic. I hadn't even taken my coat off, but I had to answer the phone because I have this annoying thing in my constitution which compels me to conduct myself as a professional even when I'm working with people who have no intention of reciprocating. As always, as soon as I said hello, I heard the usual sobbing hysterics. Heather, 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 where are you? I need to see you right now, Heather, etc., 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 choked out between equally deep gulps to swallow the tears. I can't recall what it was that morning that made me think, I just don't have time for this stuff today. So I broke my own character and said, in the calmest voice I could muster before I'd have a chance to sit down, Fiona, you know that I don't actually work here. I'm not an NHS employee. I'm just a temp typist. I was sent here by an agency to help clear the typing backlog. That's all I'm here to do. And you know what she said then? Oh, I'm sorry about that, and hung up, leaving me in peace forever to come. No tears, no gulps, no hysterics, no sobbing, just a conversational speaking voice. Just like that, like an actor breaking character. I have no medical training or experience, but somehow, with 10 seconds of talking, I got her to flick it off like a switch. That's my official clinical diagnosis made in an NHS building I never should have been in, working in a job I never should have been placed in. And all of that, save for the blog post, was a quaint memory for 2 decades until last week when, once again, I was reminded that I am, despite my best efforts, Leo Sodding Bloom. To state the obvious, you never forget the name, face, occupation, accent, and case history of someone who has aggressively stalked you in real life. And remember, we are not talking about some anonymous online troll. I mean someone with an active criminal history who has forced you to barricade yourself in a building while being laughed at by your coworkers who find it all funny. That latter part, being laughed at for being scared and trying to get help to protect myself, is a wound that's never healed. Nor do you forget that person's details when part of your job involves accessing their paper medical records contained in 2 paper folders, each 6 centimeters thick and held together with clips and rubber bands, because all they are biologically capable of doing is stalking for as long as they live. And yes, I am reiterating once again that I have no medical training. I had no background clearance or security check. I was given no instruction or support in that job. I had no data protection training despite having God mode access to thousands of people's lifetime medical histories, and I should not have been anywhere near those records or the building. Never mind being put into direct patient contact. Never mind being stalked by the person in the data. And yet, I was somehow the difficult one for having a problem with this. And as for being stalked, I was just supposed to swallow that as a condition of a temp job, and I'm sorry you feel that way is all I got. Anyway, so last week I stumbled upon some online sleuthing speculating about the real-life identity of the stalker portrayed in a certain hit Netflix series. Speculation which the individual herself has confirmed. Can you imagine what it felt like for me to say to myself, oh wow, that's her, that was her, that is her, that was the woman who stalked me? I can assure you, no, you can't, because my thoughts weren't self-pity for myself. My thoughts were everyone in the system gave her every benefit of the doubt and every bit of support they could offer, and no one in the system gave a damn about me, and so they let her get away with it. And she kept on doing it, and 10 years later, she did it to someone so badly, He had to make a Netflix series about it, and God only knows who else she's harassed in those 2 decades, and what on earth is going to get her to stop. So here's the dilemma I've been wrestling with for the past week or so. Do I, as someone who advocates for privacy so hard that I wrote a book about it, owe this woman any right to privacy? Because being someone who can now see the half-century mark in front of me, there's another question that I wonder about a lot too. What about me? When do I start being treated with the same kindness and compassion and humanity that others seem to take for granted, but I somehow have to fight for and always lose? What about me? When do I get to speak up for myself about my own hurt and not be labeled difficult or making a fuss, while someone who actively hurts people on an industrial scale gets the benefit of the doubt and the compassion? What about me? Yes, I know she's unwell, but what about me? Yes, she has a condition she cannot control, but what about me? Yes, it's great that we live in a society here in Scotland that allows people to be flawed human beings, but what about me? Why do I have to stay silent about my own experiences and my own hurt? Because this is some sort of binary equation in which the other person always takes priority. What about me? Why was I put in a situation in the first place where my rights and dignity were contingent on my employment and immigration statuses? What about me? What if we lived in a world where the ability to pay your bills didn't hang on going through useless and unqualified recruitment consultants at recruitment agencies who only care about making the sale, and respond to your difficulties by tooting, "Well, I'm sorry you feel that way," while quietly typing "difficult, do not place" in your database entry? What about me? What if someone had thought, "Holy she's even stalking the temp," instead of laughing at the temp and taking steps that, in some alternative history timeline, meant she never crossed that man's path or anyone's ever again? What about him? Why is everyone tiptoeing around her and her needs rather than asking who else has she hurt? Who else has she done this to? What about them? I'm going to continue wrestling with that dilemma, probably while talking to my garden vegetables, but I think if 2024 me could look back at 2004 me, this would be the advice I'd give her. Privacy is a fundamental human right, and data protection is the means by which people's privacy is secured. And it's great that you have that running through you like an electrical current, but a lot of people are going to spend the next couple of years taking the piss on you because of who you are, knowing that you don't have the legal rights to stand up for yourself yet. But don't confuse your lack of legal rights with a constraint on your dignity. You do not owe privacy to someone who has aggressively sought out to hurt you. You do not owe privacy to someone who has hurt you and got away with it. You are under no obligation to protect people who have failed to protect you. You owe these people as much compassion, kindness, and consideration as they have given you, which is F all. So that's my stance, and if you find that harsh or inconsistent with my values as a privacy advocate, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Sent from my iPhone. So that concluded her blog post, and then at the very end, she pasted a tweet from Twitter/X that someone named Rob McDowell posted about Fiona that reiterated everything Heather wrote here on her blog. To those who are trying to excuse or explain her behavior and actions, you really need to suspend disbelief. Fiona Harvey is a truly dreadful individual who has caused untold misery to a great more people than has been published thus far, including one person who I love very much. Whatever her motivation, she is an abusive fantasist who shouldn't be allowed to continue her vendettas the way she has been for years and years and years. Fed up of reading people trying to downplay the impact of her abusive behavior and conduct to those she abused as though her actions were not harrowing, alarming, exhausting, and cruel. So my question is, how did Fiona get admitted to this mental facility in the first place? What did she do? She continues to persist that she has never been convicted of a crime, so much to the point that she is suing Netflix and thinks there's a legal loophole that's going to make her very wealthy. But she had to have done something to land herself in this facility. So, what was it? That is the $1,000,000 question. That is the question Netflix needs to find the answer to. For some reason, this information is being concealed from the public. But once we get the answer to that question, her whole case is going to crumble like a house of cards.